I've experienced what you just described a few too many times. Like you work so hard for something, you get to the top. It was on your vision board, it was on your goals list, you wanted to hit it for 2025. And then you kind of think like, this is nice, it's cool, but it doesn't fulfill you emotionally like you thought it would. You thought it would give you like this satisfaction, overwhelming pride, joy, but you're just left feeling like almost disappointed, almost like anticlimax. It's just
Mm,
not what you expected. And one of the
yeah.
questions actually from the audience was how to feel accomplished. Like how do you make sure that what
Mm,
you're striving for will actually fulfill you rather than give you that anticlimactic feeling?
mm. Oh, I love this question so much because I struggled with this for such a long time myself. And it's ultimately because I was attaching my worth to my productivity. That was how I defined my success. So, what I learned to do is to redefine my success and to think, well, if success could be anything that I want it to be, what would that look like? And really get honest with myself. And so, what I did is I actually did a mind map where I put success in the middle and then I kind of started branching out into these different areas of like tangible things where I could look at that and say, if I'm doing this, I'm successful. If I'm feeling that, I'm successful. And so that kind of comes from your core values much more than it comes from what you're doing. So for me, freedom is a really something I value a lot. Authenticity as well, growth, like expression, creativity, adventure, exploration, those kinds of things. So those became like my kind of central pillars. And then from that, I could get even more specific about, okay, well, authenticity. Well, how do I know if I'm being authentic? Okay, well, I'm only doing speaking arrangements that feel exciting to me, where I'm like, I know the time is going to go by so quickly and I'm going to love it. And I'm saying no to everything else. Well, what else? Like, what else could it be? Well, I'm only writing posts that represent things that I really truly feel, if it, even if it's controversial, even if it upsets people. Okay, what else could it be? So then you can really get as granular as possible and almost like design the life that you want based off of those values and based off of what success really looks like for you. So then when you find yourself in situations where superficially it could be considered a failure, but to you, it's not a failure because you have your own definition of success. It gives you something tangible to actually look at. So I'll give you an example. I was planning a conference for the end of September and I had started to plan it last September. So it's been a long time coming. And I think the promotions had started maybe like March sometime. And so I had all my speakers lined up. I made a website. I did promotional graphics, like everything was done. A lot of work went into it and I was really excited about it. But then as the months went on and I started promoting it, I started to feel less and less aligned with actually doing it. And it was feeling heavy. It was feeling not enjoyable. And then it occurred to me that I don't need to do this. Like, this is my business. And if I choose not to do something, I'm allowed to stop. And so then I thought, well, okay, is there a way for me to achieve my objective, but not have it feel heavy and have it feel aligned again? And then I realized that I love hosting events and I like doing, in particular, pop up events where they just kind of happen sporadically. It's more in line with my intuition, with the kinds of conversations I'm having, the people I'm meeting. It feels really freeing and really inspiring to me. So I was like, well, I'm still really excited to interview these speakers and like do these sessions that I planned. I just don't want to do it all in one big chunk. Like, I don't want to have a big launch. I don't want to do all this marketing. I just want to kind of like throw it out there and see who wants to come. So I gave myself permission to do that. And then I announced to everybody, hey, this conference is not happening. And yeah, there was a part of me that was like, this is a failure. You said you were going to do it and you didn't do it and you could have done it. Like, I could have pushed myself to do it. I had everything ready. Everyone agreed to it. People were buying tickets. It was happening, but I just didn't want to. But then I said, well, actually, if my values are based around authenticity and creating a great experience for my students and living a life that feels freeing and flexible to me, then what is actually successful is to cancel it and to do it differently. So I redefined my own success in that moment and I made it empowering. And sure enough, when I told the speakers what was happening, they were really supportive and they saw it as a huge win for me. They were really impressed with me. They had more respect for me because I said, you know what, I'm not feeling it, and therefore I'm not going to do it. And as entrepreneurs themselves, they knew how difficult it was for me to do that, but they were also feeling empowered by it, just seeing me do that. And my purpose is to be a role model for others in entrepreneurship or entering into entrepreneurship. And so therefore I checked all the boxes in my own definition of success. But externally, I was very aware that it was a failure. And so I think that's the most practical way that I've found to help me feel valuable and aligned and purposeful and accomplished, even if my accomplishments are not what others would consider to be accomplishments. So therefore, my worth is not coming from my behavior. It's coming more from the choices I make and just my presence in general.
Do you know that's a really good example of how sometimes you actually get success from listening to your feelings. Like it's not necessarily about grinding and working hard and setting all these goals, all the I guess logical stuff, actually listening to how you feel and actually taking a risk. Sometimes it feels like the safe option is just to work mindlessly, ignore how you feel. Oh, I'm not going to listen to the fact that I'm burnt out. I'm not going to listen to the fact that this doesn't feel right. Let me just keep going. Actually, success is taking that risk and listening to how you feel. And it reminds me, I remember you said at the start, success can be anything you want. And I think people forget that. Success feels quite binary sometimes, like, oh, it's the, living in Dubai, it's the high-rise apartment, it's the living in Bali, maybe like doing the digital nomad thing. But success can be what you want. Success might be having a 9 to 5, having a family, and like I don't know, like doing like the quote unquote thing. And what I often
Mm,
like to ask people is like, what would you do if you were like the last person on earth? Like no one's watching you, no one's here to be impressed by you or be disappointed by you. What would you still aspire for? And
mm,
because then I think it gets you to like kind of look inward and stuff. But I kind of wanted
yeah.
to ask, when it comes to intuition, because I get this question all the time, like, how do you know what is your intuition? How do I know it's not overthinking and it's not, self-doubt? How do you know it's intuition?
Mm. Oh, I love that question. I think for a long time, I was experimenting with tapping into my intuition more, but I didn't even know that I was doing that. And then at a certain point, everything just kind of clicked into place, which ironically was my intuition telling me this is what intuition is. It's so funny. Um, so it's very meta for me because I think if you are a
Mm,
highly intuitive person, you're not even aware of the fact that you are a lot of the time. You just feel like you're different from most people, that you have
mm,
feelings about things that end up being true, or even like premonitions about things that end up happening. And you are much more led by your gut or things that you can't really explain than you are led by data or facts or things that have happened before. And so we're all raised uh, going through the schooling system to know that facts and data are the way. Like science is very predictable, and we should learn from our mistakes and our experiences, and then everything is very linear and very progressive, and one thing builds onto another, and so on and so forth. But for very intuitive people, that just doesn't make any sense because one minute we feel one way, the next we feel another. Something that makes sense could feel completely wrong for us, and two people could have the same actions, and one feels very aligned and comfortable with that, and the other one feels like this is totally wrong for them. So it's hard to explain what it is, but I think that it's very similar to what you were saying about like if no one else was there, if you didn't have to explain yourself, if no one was even going to know about it, how would you respond to a situation? Or what would you do? Or how would you act? How would you feel? That's usually what your intuition is. It's the thing that comes to mind without any explanation. It doesn't always make sense. In fact, it very rarely makes sense. It's the thing that just feels right for you in that moment that only you can really understand. And if you really, really try to figure out why it feels right, you will find a reason. And it's probably something to do with your values your past experiences, your goals, whatever. But you don't have to have a reason as well. And so I think one of the reasons people can be so scared to trust their intuition is because the majority of people are not highly intuitive and they are looking for the rationale and they want that rationale to make sense. And if you can't give them that, you're going to be criticized, you're going to be judged, you're going to be condemned, you're going to be excluded. Like bad things are probably going to happen. So I think it's much harder for intuitive people to be authentic because it requires them to go against the grain and to upset people. And if you're a people pleaser, that's very difficult. That's a really stressful thing to do. And so recognizing that people won't understand, but it's still right for you is is tough. But I think that's also a very breakthrough moment for someone who is highly intuitive because it allows them to become more of themselves.
I think you're so right. Like people pleasers struggle with intuition. It's funny actually because people pleasers, they meet their colleagues, they meet their friends, they naturally want to make them happy. They're actually quite intuitive naturally. Like you pick up on subtle smiles or subtle frowns or like subtle body language. Like you naturally are probably quite intuitive anyway, but you have to suppress it to make them happy. It reminds me of how sometimes the easy route is the logic, but the risky side or the brave side is emotions, like listening to how you actually feel. It brings me on to the last question actually from one of the audience members. We know that success doesn't guarantee that you'll feel accomplished or that you'll feel good. So how do we actually truly internalize the belief that we are valuable without the achievements?
Hmm. Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying about defining your own success. Because through doing that, you are thinking about what you value, what you care about, what is really important to you. What helps me is knowing that I can look at any situation. I can look at two different ways of handling that situation, and I can see both perspectives. I can see how one person would think that this is absolutely the most appropriate way, and the other person would think that this is absolutely the appropriate way, and they are different, and yet they're both true. And so when I know that, I can apply that to any situation that I'm in where it's impossible to make everybody happy. It's impossible to please everybody in any decision that you make. And so therefore, why not make the one that you want to make? Because you've got to live with yourself. And so, yeah, there are going to be some unhappy people, but ultimately you're going to stay true to yourself. And so, I think that's where self-worth actually comes from. Is when you choose you, despite what, society might expect of you. The more you choose you, the more you follow what feels right to you and you're proud of that, the more you realize that your worth is just inherently there. But what we're actively doing a lot of the time with the self-sabotage is we are going against what we think is right to try to please others or to try to fit in or to try to get accepted or promoted or whatever it is. And therefore we're killing a little bit of ourselves. We're killing that relationship we have with ourselves, which we only have one of us. And so that's what I was doing for the longest time. And undoing that takes time because there's a lot of damage that gets done. And so that's what I do when I'm working with people is to kind of like uncover all of that, forgive ourselves for the things that we did that we maybe shouldn't have or that we regret or that were betrayals to ourselves and recognize that, we did that because it was hard and that was what we thought was right at the time. But then learning how to kind of spin the wheel the other way of what would it look like if I was true to myself and how would that make me feel about myself? And so it really comes down to building a solid relationship with yourself where what you say you're going to do is what you actually do. And you're honoring your own values, your own priorities, your own beliefs above what other people expect of you. And over time, you will feel more valuable. You would feel more whole and you won't be as easily affected by what other people say or do.
That makes so much sense. And it reminds me of something that I saw recently, how so much of your childhood is like being true to yourself, like, saying silly, goofy things, like just being a kid. And then so much of your adulthood is actually like losing touch with yourself. And, we all kind of start this journey of coming back to ourselves at a different time. And it kind of links with what you said, like self-worth is when you choose you. And, success is when you choose alignment with yourself, not alignment with everyone else, which we've all fallen into with the burnout or the people pleasing. But actually, success is defining what you want and almost choosing that over and over again. Because, yeah, I suppose you build the confidence that this is what I want and I feel good about this. I don't feel good necessarily when I choose what everyone else wants.